In the last episode, we left off with the girls' movement on the brink of a new era of growth and transformation, as she expanded her reach to neighboring towns, launched new initiatives to support education and economic development, and engaged with local government officials to advocate for policy changes. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the sprawling metropolis of New Eden. The once abandoned streets hummed with renewed life, as people from all walks of life gathered in the town square, their faces aglow with hope and determination. I stood atop the makeshift stage, my heart pounding in my chest as I gazed out at the sea of expectant faces. My name is Maya, and I am the leader of this movement, a revolution that began with a simple dream of creating a better future for all. The weight of responsibility hung heavy on my shoulders, but I knew I wasn't alone. I had the support of my team, my leaders, and most importantly, the people. The air was electric with anticipation as I raised my hands to quiet the crowd. Today, we mark a new chapter in our journey, I declared, my voice carrying across the city. Today, we take the next step towards a brighter tomorrow. The crowd erupted into cheers, their fervor infectious as I smiled, feeling a sense of pride and purpose wash over me. This was just the beginning. As the celebration continued, I couldn't help but think of the long road ahead. There would be challenges, setbacks, and doubters, but I knew that together we could overcome anything. I glanced over at my team, their faces etched with determination, and I knew that we were in this for the long haul. The night wore on, the music and laughter fading into the distance as I made my way back to our makeshift headquarters, a converted warehouse on the outskirts of town. The streets were quiet now, save for the distant hum of hoverbikes as the city's nocturnal creatures began to stir. I stepped inside, the soft glow of holographic screens illuminating the dimly lit space. My team was already gathered, poring over data and schematics, their faces bathed in the pale light. "Where are we at with the education initiative?" I asked, taking a seat beside them. "We're making good progress," replied Rachel, her eyes scanning the data streams. "We've established partnerships with several local schools, and our outreach program has already reached over 1,000 students." I nodded, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. This was just the beginning, but it was a start. As the night wore on, we pored over strategy and tactics, our discussion flowing easily, like a well-oiled machine. This was my team, my family, and together we were unstoppable. But as I looked around the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were just scratching the surface. There were those who opposed us, who saw our movement as a threat to their power and status quo. I knew that sooner or later we would face a reckoning. I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. We had a long way to go, but I knew that with every step forward, we were one step closer to realizing our vision of a better future. As the meeting drew to a close, I stood up, my eyes scanning the room. "Let's get some rest," I said, my voice weary but resolute. "Tomorrow we take on the world." The room erupted into laughter, and for a moment the weight of our mission lifted as we basked in the warmth of our camaraderie. But as I lay in bed later that night, my mind racing with thoughts of the future, I couldn't help but wonder. What challenges awaited us on the horizon, and would we be ready to face them? The darkness outside seemed to press in on me, like an unseen force waiting to pounce. I tossed and turned, my mind refusing to quiet as the shadows danced on the walls of my makeshift quarters. I threw off the covers, padding barefoot to the window. The city lights twinkled like stars, a reminder of the millions who still lived in the shadows, waiting for a glimmer of hope. A soft knock at the door broke the silence. I opened it to find Rachel standing in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "Maya, I've been going over the data and I think I've found something," she said, her voice hesitant. I nodded, beckoning her in. We sat down at the makeshift desk, the holographic screens flickering to life as Rachel called up the data. "What is it?" I asked, my heart pounding in anticipation. "It's the local government's latest proposal," Rachel replied, her brow furrowed in concern. "They're offering us a deal. They'll provide funding and resources for our education initiative. but in exchange, they want us to scale back our advocacy for policy changes. I felt a cold dread creeping up my spine. This was exactly the kind of compromise that could undermine our entire movement. What do you think? I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. Rachel's eyes met mine, her expression resolute. I think we need to be careful, Maya. This could be a trap away for them to control our message and limit our impact. I nodded, my heart heavy with the weight of responsibility. This was a decision that could make or break our movement. We need to discuss this with the team, I said, my voice firm. We can't make a decision without considering all the angles. Rachel nodded, her eyes never leaving mine. I'll call a meeting for first light. We'll get to the bottom of this. As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking a thin line, one misstep away from disaster. But I knew that I couldn't let fear hold us back. We had to push forward no matter the cost. The meeting was already underway when I arrived. The team gathered around the makeshift table, their faces set with determination. "We can't trust them," said Marcus, his voice firm. "They're just trying to silence us." "But what if this is the only way to get the funding we need?" countered Emily, her brow furrowed in concern. I listened, my heart weighing the pros and cons as the debate raged on. And then, like a spark of lightning, it hit me, the solution that would allow us to take the funding without compromising our values. "We'll accept their offer, but only if we can maintain full control over our messaging and advocacy," I said, my voice firm. "We'll take their funding, but we won't be bought." The room fell silent as my team considered the implications. And then, like a wave, the tension broke as they nodded in agreement. We had made our decision, and now it was time to face the consequences. I stood up, my eyes scanning the room as a sense of determination washed over me. "Let's do this," I said, my voice firm. "Let's show them what we're made of." As we dispersed, the meeting over, I couldn't help but wonder, had we just made a deal with the devil, or had we found a way to harness the system to our advantage? Only time would tell. The darkness outside my window seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, as if the very fabric of reality was alive and watching me. I tossed and turned, my mind refusing to quiet as the doubts and fears that lurked in the shadows began to creep out. I threw off the covers and got out of bed, padding softly to the window. The city outside was bathed in a soft, ethereal glow, the skyscrapers reaching for the stars like giant sentinels. New Eden, the city of hope and dreams, where the impossible became possible. But as I gazed out into the night, I knew that the city's beauty belied the darkness that lurked beneath. There were those who sought to tear us down, to crush our spirits and snuff out the flame of hope that we had ignited. I sighed, feeling the weight of responsibility settle back onto my shoulders. I couldn't let my fears and doubts consume me. I had to stay strong for myself, for my team, and for the people who believed in me. I turned away from the window and began to pace back and forth across the room, my mind racing with thoughts of strategy and counter-strategy. We needed to stay one step ahead of our opponents, to anticipate their moves and prepare for every eventuality. As I walked, my footsteps echoed off the walls, a steady drumbeat that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of my heart. I felt alive, connected to the city and its people in a way that I never had before. Suddenly, my comms device beeped, shrill and insistent. I crossed the room in 2 strides, my heart racing as I checked the message. It was from an unknown sender, the words flashing on the screen like a warning beacon. "Meet me at the old clock tower at midnight. Come alone." My instincts screamed at me to delete the message, to ignore it and pretend it never happened. But something about the words resonated deep within me, a sense of foreboding that I couldn't shake. I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. Then, with a sense of resignation, I made my decision. I would go to the meeting, alone and unafraid. The clock tower loomed before me, its ancient stones worn smooth by the passage of time. I approached it cautiously, my senses on high alert as I scanned the surrounding rooftops for any sign of danger. The wind whispered secrets in my ear, its cold breath sending shivers down my spine. I shivered, despite the warmth of the summer night, as I pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit, the only sound the soft ticking of the clock's mechanism. I waited, my heart pounding in my chest as the minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. And then, out of the shadows, a figure emerged as I drifted off to sleep. The sounds of the city outside my window mingled with the whispers of my own doubts, echoes of the fears that lurked in the shadows of my mind. I knew that our movement was not without its enemies, those who saw our progress as a threat to their power and privilege. The morning light spilled into the room, casting a warm glow over the makeshift headquarters. I rose from bed, my body stiff from the makeshift mattress, and made my way to the communal kitchen. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and I smiled, feeling a sense of comfort in the simple routine. Rachel was already seated at the table, her eyes fixed on a holographic display projected in front of her. "Morning, Maya," she said, her voice husky from lack of sleep. I took a seat beside her, pouring myself a steaming cup of coffee. "What's the situation?" I asked, nodding towards the display. "We've received a message from the local government," Rachel replied, her brow furrowed in concern. "They're requesting a meeting with you, citing security concerns about the movement." My heart skipped a beat. This was not unexpected, but it did raise the stakes. "When and where?" "This afternoon at City Hall," Rachel said, her eyes locked on mine. "They're not taking any chances. They're sending their top security advisor, Director Ortega." I took a deep breath, my mind racing with possibilities. This could be a trap, or it could be an opportunity. I glanced around the room, my eyes meeting those of my team. We were in this together, and together we would face whatever lay ahead. "Let's get to work," I said, my voice firm. "We need to be prepared for anything." The next few hours were a blur of activity as we pored over intelligence reports and strategy briefs. My team was a well-oiled machine, working in perfect sync, and I knew that together we could face whatever lay ahead. As I stood outside City Hall, the imposing structure looming above me, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. This was it. This was the moment of truth. Director Ortega stood before me, her eyes cold and calculating. "Miss Maya," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "I must say I'm impressed. You've managed to mobilize quite a following." I smiled, my heart pounding in my chest. "We're not just a following, Director. We're a movement, and we won't be silenced." The air was thick with tension as we faced off in a battle of wills. I knew that this was just the beginning, but I was ready. We were ready. "So, what can I do for you, Director?" I asked, my voice sweet and innocent. Ortega smiled, her eyes glinting with menace. "Oh, I think we can come to an arrangement, Miss Maya, one that benefits both of us." I raised an eyebrow, my heart racing with anticipation. What did she have in mind? And what would be the cost of playing along? The game was afoot, and I was ready to play. But as I gazed into Ortega's cold, calculating eyes, I knew that this was a game that would push us to the very limits of our endurance. The stars twinkled above, casting an eerie glow over the city's skyline as I lay awake, my thoughts consumed by the weight of our mission. The hum of the city's machinery, the distant thrum of hoverbikes, and the occasional passing of pedestrians created a constant reminder that our work was far from over. I tossed and turned, my mind replaying the conversations of the day, the faces of the people we'd met, and the promises we'd made. Every step forward felt like a victory, but I knew that with every success came new challenges, new obstacles to overcome. As the darkness outside slowly gave way to the first light of dawn, I finally rose from bed, my body and mind exhausted but my spirit still burning bright. I dressed quickly, my eyes scanning the small, cluttered room that had become my temporary home. Downstairs, the kitchen was empty, the only sound the soft hum of the coffee machine. I poured myself a steaming cup, the aroma filling the air as I took a seat at the small table. My comms device beeped, and I hesitated for a moment before answering. Rachel's voice was bright and cheerful, a stark contrast to my own groggy state. "Good morning, Maya," she said, her tone laced with a hint of teasing. "You sound like you've been up all night. I replied, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. I couldn't shake the feeling that we're missing something. Rachel's tone turned serious. What do you mean? I hesitated, unsure how to articulate the nagging sense of unease that had taken up residence in my mind. I don't know, I admitted finally. It's just a feeling, like we're on the cusp of something big, but I'm not sure what it is. Rachel was silent for a moment, her thoughts weighing heavily on the line. I think I know what you mean, she said finally. I've had the same feeling, like there's something just out of reach, something we're not seeing. I leaned forward, my heart pounding in my chest. Let's dig deeper, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Let's find out what we're missing. Rachel's laughter was like a shot of adrenaline. I'm already on it, she said. I'll meet you at the warehouse in an hour. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I'll be there. The line went dead and I sat back, my mind racing with possibilities. What were we missing? What secrets lay hidden, waiting to be uncovered? The coffee was cold, the flavor bitter on my tongue as I took a sip. I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. We had a long way to go, and I knew that with every step forward, we were one step closer to realizing our vision of a better future. But as I stood up, my eyes scanning the small, cluttered room, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. The darkness outside my window seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, as if the city itself was alive and watching me. I tossed and turned, my mind refusing to calm, my thoughts consumed by the unknown. The next morning I rose early, the sun still a distant memory on the horizon. The city was quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the hoverbikes patrolling the skies. I made my way to the rooftop, the cool breeze whipping my hair into a frenzy as I gazed out over the metropolis. New Eden stretched out before me, a tapestry of towering skyscrapers and cramped alleyways, a city of contrasts where hope and despair walked hand in hand. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto my shoulders once more. Today, we would take the next step in our journey, and I knew that it wouldn't be easy. Downstairs, my team was already gathered, their faces set with determination. We went over the plan one last time, our words crisp and efficient like a well-rehearsed dance. Our target was the old city hall, a crumbling relic of a bygone era, now home to the corrupt officials who had ruled New Eden with an iron fist for far too long. Today, we would take our message directly to them and demand change. I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of my team. We were a motley crew, each with our own scars and stories, but united in our desire for a better future. With a deep breath, I nodded and we set out into the unknown. The streets were quiet as we made our way to City Hall, the only sound the soft hum of our hoverbikes escorting us. The old building loomed before us, its stone facade weathered and worn, a testament to the city's turbulent past. We dismounted, our footsteps echoing off the walls as we approached the entrance. The doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a dimly lit hallway that seemed to stretch on forever. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest as we stepped into the unknown. The hallway was deserted, the only sound the soft murmur of voices from the chambers above. We moved quickly, our footsteps light as we made our way to the central atrium. The room was filled with officials, their faces pinched and pale as they huddled around a sprawling mahogany table. Our arrival was met with a mixture of surprise and hostility as they gazed up at us with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. I stepped forward, my voice clear and strong. "We are here to demand change," I declared, my words echoing off the walls. "We will no longer be silenced, we will no longer be oppressed. It's time for a new era in New Eden." The room erupted into chaos, the officials shouting and pointing, their faces red with anger. But we stood firm, our eyes locked on the horizon, our hearts beating as one. This was just the beginning. As we emerged from the city hall, the sun was high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the city. The streets were filled with people, their faces etched with hope and determination. We had taken the first step, but I knew that the journey ahead would be long and arduous. There would be setbacks and challenges, but I also knew that we would face them together as one. The city was alive, pulsing with energy and possibility as we stood on the threshold of a new era. And I knew that no matter what lay ahead, we would face it together, united in our quest for a better future. But as I looked out at the sea of faces, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that there were forces at play that we couldn't yet see. And I knew that sooner or later we would have to face them head-on. As we basked in the glow of our small victory, I noticed a figure standing at the edge of the crowd, their eyes fixed intently on me. They were dressed in a long, dark coat, their face obscured by a hood, and for a moment I felt a shiver run down my spine. I tried to brush it off as mere paranoia, but the feeling lingered, refusing to be ignored. I scanned the crowd, searching for any other signs of trouble, but the faces around me were filled with hope and determination. The girls' movement was gaining momentum, and I knew that we had to keep pushing forward. We had taken the first step, but there were still many more to come. As I turned to my team, I caught a glimpse of the mysterious figure slipping away into the crowd. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should investigate, but the voices of my team drew me back. We spent the rest of the day meeting with community leaders and local organizers, spreading our message of hope and change. The city was alive with energy, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of real possibility. But as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I glanced around, searching for any sign of the mysterious figure, but they were nowhere to be found. As we made our way back to our headquarters, a sense of unease settled over me. I knew that we had to be careful, that there were forces at play that we couldn't yet see. I gathered my team around me, my voice low and urgent. "We need to be vigilant," I warned. "There are people out there who don't want us to succeed. We need to be prepared to face them head-on." My team nodded, their faces set with determination. We knew that the journey ahead would be long and arduous, but we were ready to face it together. As we entered our headquarters, a sense of calm settled over me. We had taken the first step, and we would keep pushing forward, no matter what lay ahead. But as I looked around the room, I caught a glimpse of something that made my heart skip a beat. On the wall, in bold, black letters, was a message. "You will never be able to change the course of this city. The darkness will consume you." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized that we were not alone. There were forces at play, forces that would stop at nothing to keep the city in chains. And I knew that we had to be ready to face them. Head on, I took a deep breath, trying to process the weight of the threat hanging in the air. The message on the wall was a stark reminder that we weren't the only ones watching, waiting and planning. I turned to my team, my eyes locking onto theirs. "We need to find out who did this," I said, my voice firm. "And we need to find out what they want." My team nodded, already springing into action. Our tech expert, Rachel, began scanning the room for any hidden cameras or surveillance devices, while our strategist, Marcus, started analyzing the message itself, searching for any hidden meanings or clues. I turned to our security specialist, Jax. "Get a team together and sweep the building," I instructed. "Make sure we're secure." Jax nodded and moved swiftly to assemble a team, their footsteps echoing through the hallway as they dispersed to search the premises. I turned my attention back to the message, my mind racing with possibilities. Who could be behind this? Was it a rival group trying to intimidate us into backing down? Or was it something more sinister, a warning from those who stood to lose the most from our movement's success? As I stood there, lost in thought, I felt a gentle touch on my arm. It was the girl, her eyes shining with an unwavering determination. "We won't let them stop us," she said, her voice soft but firm. "We won't let them take away our hope." I smiled, feeling a surge of admiration for this young woman who had sparked a movement. Together, we would face whatever came our way, no matter the cost. Just then, Rachel called out, her voice excited. "I think I've found something," she said, her eyes fixed on her tablet. "A hidden camera in the vent above the couch. It's been transmitting video feed to an unknown location." I felt a shiver run down my spine. Someone had been watching us, monitoring our every move. "Get me the footage," I instructed, my voice firm. Rachel nodded and began working her magic, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she hacked into the system. Minutes ticked by, the tension in the room building as we waited for the footage to be retrieved. Finally, Rachel turned to us, her face pale. "I have it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. We gathered around her tablet, our eyes fixed on the grainy footage. It was us, meeting, planning, and strategizing. But then the camera panned out, showing the figure in the dark coat, their face still obscured by the hood. I felt a chill run down my spine as the camera zoomed in on their eyes, the intensity of their gaze sending shivers down my spine. "Who is this?" the girl asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we're about to find out." With that, I turned to my team, my determination clear. "It's time we take the fight to them," I said, my voice firm. "It's time we find out who's behind this and put a stop to it once and for all." I stood frozen, my eyes fixed on the message, the words searing themselves into my mind. My team gathered around me, their faces reflecting the same shock and unease. "How did this happen?" someone whispered, their voice trembling. I shook my head, my mind racing. We had taken every precaution to secure our headquarters, but somehow someone had managed to breach our defenses. "Check the surveillance footage," I ordered, my voice firm. "Find out who did this and how they got in." My team scrambled to obey, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. We had to assume that whoever had written that message had covered their tracks. I turned to face my team, my eyes scanning their faces. "We can't let this intimidate us," I said, my voice steady. "We have to keep moving forward no matter what." But as I looked around the room, I saw the fear lurking in the corners of their eyes. We had all been so caught up in the momentum of our movement that we had forgotten the dangers that lurked in the shadows. I knew that I had to do something to reassure them, to remind them of why we were fighting in the first place. I took a deep breath and began to speak, my words pouring out from the heart. "We started this movement because we believed in a better future, a future where every citizen has a voice, where every child has access to education and opportunity. We can't let fear and intimidation stop us from achieving that goal." My team nodded, their faces set with determination, but I could see the doubt still lingering in their eyes. I knew that I had to do something more, something to prove to them that we were stronger than any threat. And then, suddenly, an idea occurred to me. "Let's hold a rally," I said, my voice rising with excitement. "Let's show the city that we won't be silenced, that we won't be intimidated. We'll hold it in the city square and we'll invite every citizen to join us." My team looked at me, their faces skeptical. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" someone asked. I nodded, my heart pounding with conviction. "It's the only way we can show them that we won't back down. We'll make it a celebration of our movement, a declaration of our refusal to be silenced." My team looked at each other and I could see the hesitation in their eyes. But as they looked back at me, I saw the spark of determination rekindle. "Let's do it," someone said, their voice firm. And with that we set to work, planning the biggest rally the city had ever seen. The message seemed to leap off the wall, its words burning into my mind like a brand. I felt a surge of anger, a sense of defiance rising up within me. Who dared to threaten us in this way? Who thought they could intimidate us into giving up? I turned to my team, my eyes scanning their faces. They were all staring at the message, their expressions ranging from shock to outrage. "We need to find out who did this," I said, my voice firm. "We need to know who's behind this threat." My team nodded, determination etched on their faces. We quickly got to work, scouring the headquarters for any signs of evidence. It didn't take us long to find a small security camera hidden in a corner of the room. "I think I can hack into the system," one of my team members said, their fingers flying across their console. "Let me see if I can retrieve any footage." We waited in silence, our eyes fixed on the screen as the footage began to play. The camera showed a figure in a dark coat, their face obscured by a hood, sneaking into the headquarters and leaving the message. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized the figure. It was the same person I had seen at the edge of the crowd earlier today. "I know who that is," I said, my voice low. I saw them earlier today. They were watching us. My team turned to me, their eyes searching. What do you think they want? One of them asked. I shook my head. I don't know, but we need to be careful. We can't let them intimidate us into backing down. We spent the rest of the night brainstorming, trying to come up with a plan to uncover the identity of the mysterious figure. We knew it wouldn't be easy, but we were determined to push forward, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. As I looked around the room, I saw a sense of resolve in my team's eyes. We were in this together, and we would face whatever challenges came our way. But as I settled in for the night, trying to get some rest before the battles ahead, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see the figure in the dark coat lurking in the shadows. And then, just as I was starting to drift off to sleep, I heard a faint whisper in my ear. "You will never be able to change the course of this city. The darkness will consume you." I sat up with a start, my heart racing. I was alone in the room, but I knew I wasn't alone in the city. The forces of darkness were closing in, and we were running out of time. I knew I had to act fast, to come up with a plan to take down the mysterious figure and uncover the secrets they were hiding. The fate of the city hung in the balance, and I was the only one who could save it. I threw off my blankets, my mind racing with possibilities. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. I was ready to fight for the city, for the people, and for the future. And as I stood up, my eyes fixed on the message on the wall, I knew that I would do whatever it took to bring light to the darkness. The message on the wall seemed to seep into my bones, a cold, dark presence that threatened to extinguish the flame of hope we had lit. I felt a surge of anger, but I knew I had to keep my emotions in check. I had to think, to plan, to prepare. I turned to my team, my eyes scanning their faces. They were waiting for me, waiting for guidance. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. "We need to get to the bottom of this," I said, my voice calm and even. "Whoever wrote this message is trying to intimidate us. They're trying to make us doubt ourselves." I turned to our tech expert, a brilliant young woman with a genius-level IQ. "Can you trace the origin of this message?" I asked. She nodded, her eyes already fixed on her computer screen. "I'll get started right away," she said. I turned to the rest of the team. "We need to review our security protocols. We need to make sure we're prepared for any eventuality." As we began to discuss our plan of action, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. The message on the wall seemed to loom over us, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked in the shadows. I knew that we had to move fast. We had to push forward, no matter what lay ahead. We had to show the city that we would not be intimidated. As we worked through the night, our determination and resolve growing with every passing minute, I knew that we were ready for whatever came next. We were ready to face the darkness head-on. But as I looked around the room, I couldn't help but wonder who was behind the message. What did they want from us? And what would they stop at to get it? I pushed the questions aside, focusing on the task at hand. We had a job to do, and we would do it no matter what. As the night wore on, our plan began to take shape. We would increase our security measures, we would reach out to our allies and supporters, and we would continue to spread our message of hope and change. And as I looked around the room, I knew that we were ready. We were ready to face whatever lay ahead together. But as I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye, a figure standing in the shadows watching us. My heart skipped a beat as I turned to face them, but they were gone, vanished into thin air. I knew that I hadn't imagined it. I knew that we were being watched, and I knew that we had to be ready. For the darkness was coming, and it would not be gentle. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I read the message, my mind racing with possibilities. Who could have written this? And how did they get into our headquarters? I turned to my team, my eyes scanning the room. "We need to find out who did this," I said, my voice low and urgent. My team nodded, their faces set with determination. We knew that we had to take this threat seriously. I turned to our tech expert, a brilliant young woman named Sarah. "Can you trace the source of this message?" I asked. Sarah nodded, her fingers flying across her computer keyboard. "I'll try," she said, her eyes fixed on the screen. As we waited, I couldn't help but think about the mysterious figure I had seen earlier. Could they have written this message? Suddenly, Sarah looked up, her eyes wide with concern. "I think I've found something," she said. I leaned in, my heart pounding in my chest. "What is it?" I asked. Sarah hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. "It looks like the message was sent from a secure server, one that's heavily encrypted." I felt a chill run down my spine. This was no ordinary prank. Whoever had written this message was sophisticated, and they were determined to intimidate us. I turned to my team, my eyes scanning the room. "We need to be careful," I said. "We're not just fighting against the government. We're fighting against a powerful enemy who will stop at nothing to keep the city in chains." My team nodded, their faces set with determination. We knew that we had to be prepared to face whatever lay ahead. As we continued to discuss our next move, I couldn't help but think about the darkness that lurked beneath the city's surface. We had uncovered a small part of it, but I knew that there was so much more to explore. I looked around the room, my eyes meeting the gazes of my team. We were in this together, and we would fight to the end to bring hope and change to this city. But as I looked around the room, I caught a glimpse of something that made my heart skip a beat. On the edge of the room, hidden in the shadows, was the mysterious figure I had seen earlier. I felt a surge of fear, my mind racing with possibilities. What did they want? And why were they watching us? I took a deep breath, my eyes fixed on the figure. I knew that we had to confront them, head on. The future of this city depended on it.